A few years ago, I took a trip to a place called Sunset Pines Motel. I was 32 and working as a freelance photographer. I often searched for abandoned spots to snap pictures, thinking this would inspire me. The motel seemed perfect at first, but it felt off right away. When I arrived, the neon sign flickered above me. The tug of nostalgia hit as I stepped into the reception area. The walls were loaded with faded pictures of families smiling. It reminded me of happier times, but I also felt a chill. I brushed it off, focusing instead on my work. That night, I settled into my room. It was quiet at first, which was nice. But then I began hearing muffled voices. They came from the walls, or so I thought. I tried to listen closely, but all I heard was my heartbeat. I wondered if I was imagining it, so I distracted myself with my camera. The following night, things escalated. The voices grew louder. I heard arguing, but I couldn't understand anything. I felt uneasy. Leaving crossed my mind, but I wanted to explore the abandoned building nearby. Ignoring my gut feeling was a mistake that I started seeing shadows at my window. At first, I thought it was just the trees swaying. But it felt wrong. I remembered the others staying at the motel. They rarely spoke. Their eyes darted around, like they were scared. When I asked them about the area, they whispered and changed the subject. My curiosity grew. One night, I went outside for fresh air. I saw a woman standing in the parking lot, staring right at my window. Her clothes were torn, and her hair looked wild. A wave of fear crashed over me. I thought of asking if she needed help, but I felt frozen. It felt like she was watching my every move. I went back to my room. The voices echoed through the walls again, louder than ever. My heart raced in my chest. I felt suffocated by the secrets of the motel. I wanted to run, but part of me wondered if it was all in my head. As days passed, the feeling of dread grew heavier. That woman kept haunting my mind. Each night, I heard those muffled arguments and saw shadows shifting outside. Whatever was happening, it felt real. The motel was no longer a peaceful retreat. Finally, I decided to leave. I packed my things, my hands shaking as I did so. As I got into my car, I glanced in the rearview mirror. I saw her reflection, her eyes staring back at me. Panic filled my chest, and I whipped around. But she was gone. I drove away fast, my heart pounding. I felt like something dark had followed me out of Sunset Pines. To this day, I can't shake the feeling that something was very wrong in that motel. I still wonder what happened there and what the whispers meant. I guess I'll never know. The next few weeks were a blur. I tried to get back to my normal life, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something from Sunset Pines lingered with me. Every night, I'd jump at the sound of a creaking floorboard or a passing car outside. The woman's wild eyes haunted my thoughts. I lost interest in photography. I couldn't bear to pick up my camera. One evening, while sorting through my gear, I found an old notebook filled with sketches and notes from my trip. I flipped through the pages. Most pages were filled with ideas for future shoots. But then, I found doodles of the motel's layout. I had drawn little notes next to parts of the building, words like wrong and dark. I had documented my unease without realizing it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Images of the motel flooded my mind. I picked up my phone, half expecting to see the woman's face reflected in the screen. Instead, it was just a blank image. I stared at it, feeling the gnawing need to know what had happened there. I decided to call a friend who lived nearby. Maybe he could help me figure this out. After I told him about the motel, he went silent for a moment. "You should have left when you felt it," he finally said, his voice low. "Those places hold on to things, you know. If you're shaken, it's for a reason. Maybe it's best to leave the past buried." But curiosity pushed back against the fear. I had to return. I needed to find out if it was truly as haunted as it felt or if I was just creating stories in my head. The next day, I drove back to Sunset Pines. The same flickering neon sign greeted me, as if it was warning me. As I stepped into the reception, the air felt thicker. The pictures on the wall looked different, the smiles on those faces now seemed sad and desperate. The woman's eyes from the night I left swirled in my memory that I headed towards the abandoned building, heart racing. The sun hung low, casting eerie shadows. I found the door ajar. Hesitant, I pushed it open. The smell of decay filled my lungs. As I stepped inside, the floor creaked beneath me, then everything went dark. The sudden absence of light threw me into a panic. I fumbled for my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating dust and old furniture. I took a breath, trying to calm my racing heart. But then, in that beam of light, I saw something move. I directed my phone's light towards the movement and froze. There, standing in the corner, was the woman. Her wild hair framed her face, and she held something in her hands. I couldn't tell what it was, but my gut screamed at me to run. Her eyes locked onto mine, and a chill ran down my spine. "Help me," she whispered. I backed away slowly, fear coursing through me. "What do you need?" She took a step forward, a shadowy figure looming behind her. The air felt electric. I turned to bolt, but before I could move, I heard the whispers again. They were more distinct now, and in that moment, I realized I was far from alone. I wanted to scream, but the sound lodged in my throat. Instead, I turned, my feet finding speed almost instinctively. I sprinted down the hallway, the flashlight beam trembling in my hand. Dark shadows loomed, shadows that felt alive, waiting to snare me. The whispers followed, swirling around me like a chilling wind. "Help me," floated into the air again, unmistakably from behind, but I couldn't look back. I stumbled through the rubble, knocking over a lamp that shattered against the floor. The exits were spinning in my mind. I dashed through rotten doorways, casting light over moldy wallpaper and broken furniture. Each step seemed to echo, amplifying my panic. As I rounded a corner, I skidded to a halt, breathless. My light fell on a dusty mirror. Reflected in the glass was not just me but the shadow behind me. I whipped around, finding nothing but darkness. My heart raced as I felt the weight of unseen eyes. I was not alone. I darted back into the gloom, desperately searching for an escape. The whispers changed, now forming early sentences, fragments of stories. She knew they didn't tell the others. The words scratched at my mind as I stumbled toward the door I had come in. I needed to get out. "Don't go," the woman's voice called softly. It pulled at me, beckoning. I hesitated, feeling a tug of empathy mixed with terror. Why was she here? What had happened to her? I forced my feet to move, running the last few paces to the door. Just as I reached for the handle, the air turned cold. An icy breath brushed against my neck. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness beside me. I swung my flashlight, heart pounding wildly in my chest. It was a man, his face gaunt and drawn tight with anguish. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered, his voice raw with desperation. "What do you mean? Who are you?" I stammered, trying to keep my voice steady. "Please," he urged, stepping closer. "Don't listen to her. She's trapped. They all are. You have to leave. You have to run." His words collided with my desire to help the woman. Confusion swirled in my mind. How could I choose? The flashlight flickered, the beam dimming. Panic surged. I looked back. The woman was closer now, that twisted expression hanging heavy on her face. Her hands were stretched forward. I felt pulled in two different directions, each of them fighting for my attention. "Help me," she pleaded again. "I can't," I yelled back, backing out into the hallway. Instinct drove me, but the man's terrified eyes pinned me in place. I had to make a choice. The whispers crescendoed, drowning out everything. They were everywhere, inside my head, wrapping around me like chains. Run, run. My instinct screamed, but another part of me rushed to comfort the broken woman, that S when I saw it. On the ground, just behind the man, a flash of something metallic glinted under the dim light, a key, tarnished and ancient-looking. I instinctively reached forward, an impulse overpowering my fear. I remembered the locks I had seen earlier, the door to room 12 still standing ajar. What does this unlock? I asked, voice trembling. The man's eyes flickered with fear. You don't understand, he began, but the world around us burst into chaos, then it all went dark again. I opened my eyes to darkness. The tang of dust filled my nostrils, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I was still in the hallway. But no, I was lying on something hard and uneven. I pushed myself up, heart pounding in my chest. The air felt thick and oppressive. Fumbling for the flashlight, I found it still clutched in my hand. I turned it on, the beam slicing through the dark. My world brightened once more, revealing a small, claustrophobic room. The walls were peeling, and overstuffed furniture was pushed against the corners, as if trying to escape. Hello? I called softly, voice trembling in the silence. No answer. Just the echoes of the whispers from before, lingering like an unwelcome memory. That I stood up and scanned the room. There was a door in front, slightly ajar, the same door I had seen earlier, room 12. But first, I needed to understand what was happening. Where did he go? I whispered, recalling the man's frantic warning. I shouldn't be here. I moved towards the door but froze as I caught sight of something on the floor. It was a torn photograph, barely illuminated by my flashlight. I knelt down, picking it up. My breath caught in my throat. It was a picture of a woman, the same woman from the hallway. She looked younger, vibrant, smiling brightly. In the background was a building that looked like the motel, but it was whole, not crumbling like it was now. What happened to you? I murmured, studying her face. There was something familiar about her, something that sent a shiver down my spine. Suddenly, I heard a soft creak from the door. My heart raced. Someone was out there. I pressed my back against the wall, the photograph clutched tightly in my hands. The whispers had transformed again, growing more frantic. Please join us, it's safer here. I drew in a sharp breath. The man's warning echoed in my mind. I shouldn't trust them. But that voice was different. Was it pleading or threatening? Then, with a sudden jolt, the door swung wide open. I held my breath, staring into the darkness beyond. Someone stepped inside, silhouetted against the dim light. It was another man, this one much older, with sharp, sunken features. His eyes locked onto mine, scanning me with intensity. You shouldn't have come here, he stated, voice deep and gravelly. Who are you? I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm a warning, he replied, his gaze shifting as if he could feel the weight of the whispers in the air. They're not what they seem. Before I could react, a loud crash echoed from down the hall, punctuating his words. I jumped, adrenaline surging. What was that? I asked, feeling the urgency seep into my bones. Something worse than us, he said cryptically, taking a step closer. You need to leave. Now. Then, from the shadows beyond him, I saw the silhouette of a woman. My chest tightened as recognition washed over me. It was her. The woman from the photograph. I can help you, she rasped, her voice chillingly sweet. You just have to trust me. But the man stood firm, blocking her path. Don't listen. He shouted, the urgency rising in his voice. Get out. They'll take you. As I stood frozen, ensnared in a web of conflicting words and shadows, I knew I had to make a choice. I could feel the sinister pull of the motel tightening around me. Would I trust the woman who seemed to want to help, or the man who warned me of her? I took a shaky step back, trying to weigh my options. That's when the lights flickered overhead, leaving me with a sinking feeling that I was running out of time. The air grew heavy as I faced both figures, their presence suffocating. Silence fell between us, charged with an unspoken promise of danger. I had to decide quickly or risk being trapped in this haunting motel forever. "Please, just listen to me," the woman urged, her voice softening. The shadow around her flickered, as if she were struggling against something unseen. "I've been here so long, don't fall for it." The man interrupted, his voice raising an octave. "They'll use you to keep the cycle alive. You're a pawn to them." "What cycle?" I asked, trying to piece together the fragments of truth. I needed clarity, and there was no time to waste. "Please," the woman pleaded, stepping forward to close the gap. "They want to keep you here. I can show you the way out. Trust me." But as I looked closer at her, the edges of her silhouette seemed to waver, blurred by the dim light. It made me question how real she truly was. Behind her, the man shifted, his eyes darting toward the door, as if sensing a shift in the atmosphere. "Something's coming," he said, urgency choking his voice. "We have to move." Before I could react, I felt the floor vibrate beneath me, a low rumble that sent a jolt through my core. The walls trembled, and dust rained down from the ceiling. Instinct kicked in. I backed away, my heart racing, as the woman's expression morphed into something more sinister. "Don't run. You might not find your way back," she cried out, desperation dripping from her words. But the man caught my gaze, eyes filled with an intense fear I couldn't ignore. "Follow me," he yelled, and without thinking, I turned and sprinted toward the door. As I burst through the entrance, I expected to see the hallway I had previously navigated. Instead, I found myself in a different corridor, one lined with empty rooms. Each door bore the same faded numbers, but they felt alien, as if the motel were shifting around me. The whispers grew louder, now a cacophony of voices urging me to join them. "Help us," one echoed, softer this time. "You belong with us." Gritting my teeth, I kept moving, heart pounding louder than the whispers. I glanced behind me, half expecting to see either the man or the woman. But, like shadows, they had vanished, pulled into the depths of whatever twisted realm this place had become. I stopped at a nearby window, hoping to catch my breath. Through the grime, I could see the night outside, but the motel had twisted the landscape into something unrecognizable. Trees leaned at unnatural angles, and the moon hovered low in the sky, larger than it should be. "What is happening?" I whispered to myself, panic creeping in. Then I noticed movement outside, a figure cloaked in darkness. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. That's when I saw her again. The woman stood there, watching me through the window. Her expression was a mix of longing and rage. "Come back!" she shrieked, the sound sending a chill through my bones. "You need to stay." Before I could react, the ground shook again, and the walls of the corridor warped. I felt everything around me shift, unsettling my balance. My instinct screamed at me to run again, but was there anywhere left to go? Suddenly, I caught sight of another door at the end of the hall, slightly ajar. A sliver of light poured out into the darkness. I had a choice to make again, but this time it was clearer. I could either face the unknown or succumb to what wanted to claim me. Taking a deep breath, I sprinted toward the light. As I reached the door, the whispers crescendoed, echoing through the motel's haunted halls, then everything went dark. I blinked, disoriented, as light flooded my vision. It was harsh and sterile, like the glare of an unforgiving hospital. I was lying on cold tile, not the musty carpet of the motel. I scrambled to my feet and found myself in a small, featureless room. The walls were white, the air was still, and the room looked as if it had been abandoned mid-cleaning. I stumbled across the space, trying to make sense of where I was. There were no windows, no doors, just a single fluorescent bulb buzzing above me. The humming felt like it was vibrating in my skull. Panic flared again. Had I escaped? Or had I simply fallen deeper into something worse? Then I heard its soft, rhythmic tapping. It came from behind a curtain in one corner. My heart raced as I approached, each step heavier than the last. I pulled the curtain aside, expecting to find a window or maybe an exit. Instead, it revealed a small, circular mirror. As I looked into it, my reflection stared back, but it wasn't just me. Surrounding me in the mirror's surface were shadowy figures shifting and writhing. I felt their gaze pierce through the glass, pulling me in. They were the lost souls of the motel, their faces twisted in despair. My breath caught. A feeling of suffocating dread wrapped around me. "Help us," they whispered in unison, their voices overlapping like a haunting melody. "You must join us. It's how you can be free." I stepped back, pinching my eyes shut. The voices echoed in my head, resonating with memories I struggled to recall. Who were they? Why did they feel so familiar? Just as I was about to break away from the mirror's grasp, the buzzing light flickered and went out. The room was plunged into darkness again. I felt heat on my face. The light from the mirror was gone, but something else was there. Shadows crawled around me, coiling and shifting like smoke. I reached out, seeking anything solid to hold on to, but met only air. "Remember us?" A cold voice whispered in the dark. It felt like icy fingers brushing against my cheek. I swallowed hard, fear flooding my mind. "We gave you a choice." Suddenly, the floor vibrated again, stronger this time, as if the very foundation of the room had shifted. I needed to escape. I was about to turn back to the curtain when a loud bang echoed from a wall nearby. A hidden door slammed open, light spilling into the room once more. I dashed toward the exit, not looking back. As I reached the door, I glanced over my shoulder. The whispering figures were gone, their voices faded into an eerie silence, yet their presence lingered in the air. I stepped through the door and into what looked like the motel's lobby. The familiar reception desk stood in front of me, covered in dust and cobwebs, but there was no one there. A chill raced down my spine. That's when I saw it, I thought as I spotted a photograph resting on the counter. It felt like the answer to my torment. I slowly picked it up, fingers trembling. The smiling faces looked back at me. I recognized them. They were the man and the woman. But there was more, a group of people around them, each face hauntingly familiar. My heart sank. If they were here, then I wasn't free yet. I had just begun to uncover their secrets, and I felt like I was being pulled right back in. I turned the photograph over, willing the words scrawled on the back to explain everything, but it was blank. Nothing. Not even a date. I slammed it down on the counter in frustration, the sound echoing in the empty lobby. What was this place? What had happened here? I needed answers. Hesitating for only a moment, I stepped deeper into the motel, the wood floor creaking beneath my weight. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. The lobby opened up into a narrow hallway lined with doors. Each door looked like it hadn't been touched in years, peeling paint and rusted doorknobs. I felt drawn to the first door on my right. It looked slightly ajar. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The room was dark and dusty, with old furniture and a musty smell that hit me immediately. A flickering bulb hung from the ceiling, casting ghostly shadows across the space. There was a large bed in the corner, unmade as if someone had abruptly gotten up. Everything around me felt wrong, heavy with unspoken words. I moved forward, the floorboards protesting under my steps. Suddenly, something caught my eye on the nightstand. It was a small notebook, its pages yellowed and crumpled. I picked it up carefully, fearing it would disintegrate at my touch. The cover read, "Memories." Opening it, I saw hastily written entries filled with scrawled handwriting. They were all dated, and as I skimmed through them, my heart raced. They spoke of strange happenings, disappearing guests, whispers in the night, and a growing sense of paranoia. The last entry was dated just a week ago. My hands trembled as I read the final words. "We're not safe here. They're coming for us." I felt cold sweat trickle down my back. Who were they? Did the people in the photograph write this? A loud thud jolted me from my thoughts. I whipped around, scanning the dim room. The sound came from outside the doorway. I edged closer, heart racing again. Peering into the hallway, I saw a shadow dart past too quick to identify. I hesitated, fear clamoring in my chest. Was I truly alone, or was the motel alive with the spirits of those who had vanished? Before I could think further, the shadow returned and I caught a glimpse of a figure. It was a girl, her face pale and eyes wide with terror. I stepped back instinctively, but she rushed toward me, desperation etched on her features. "Please, you have to help us," she cried. "They're coming for you, too." Her words washed over me, a mix of dread and urgency. I wanted to question her, but before I could respond, the lights flickered violently. The air grew thick and charged, drawing my attention back to the hallway. I looked at her, fear and determination mingling. "Who's coming? What do we do?" She opened her mouth to answer, but just then, a loud crash reverberated through the motel, echoing like a war cry. The sound grated against the walls and sent shivers down my spine. "Run!" she screamed, yanking me toward the door. I had no choice. I bolted after her, the shadows swirling in our wake. Whatever lurked in this place was not done with us yet. I could feel it. The sense of impending doom hung heavily, as if this building itself were alive. But who were they, and would we make it out before it was too late? We raced down the hall, the girl ahead of me, her hair trailing behind like a warning flag. The dim light flickered again, almost in rhythm with the pounding of my heart. Each door we passed seemed to loom larger, as though they held secrets worth killing for. "Where do we go?" I shouted, but the girl didn't reply. She continued running, leading me down the corridor and into another room, slamming the door behind us. I leaned against it, breathless and trembling, trying to silence the chaos in my mind. "Lock it," she urged, her voice trembling as much as my hands. I fumbled with the old bolt, pulling it into place just as a loud bang reverberated outside, causing me to jump. "Who's out there?" I asked fearfully. But she didn't answer. Instead, she moved swiftly to the window, peering through the grime. I joined her, anxiety prickling at my skin. Outside, the eerie quiet of the night pressed in. I could see dark shapes moving close to the ground. They were fast, darting from one shadow to the next, and I felt sick to my stomach. What were they? "Tell me what's going on," I pleaded, but her eyes were wide, panic etched across her features. "They won't stop until they find us." Then it hit me. "Us? You mean like other guests? Those who've gone missing?" She nodded, biting her lip. "They knew too much." My thoughts spun. Knew about what? Why are we being chased? Before she could respond, the sound of scraping metal rang out from the door, snippets of conversation whispering just beyond it. "They're going to break in," she hissed, her eyes darting around the room. I was terrified, but I knew we needed a plan. Going to the nightstand, I opened the drawer and fished around inside. Nothing but rusted keys and a few crumpled receipts. I slammed it shut and ran to check the bathroom. "Anything in here?" I called. "No," she said, despair in her voice. Shadows spread outside, flickering like shadows of the past. I turned back toward her, feeling the weight of our situation. "What do we do? Are there exits we can use?" "There's a service door in the back, but it's locked," she whispered urgently. If we could find the right keys before I could respond, the door rattled violently. I jumped back, fear coursing through me. The girl pressed her back against the wall, eyes wide and fearful. "Help! Someone's in there." A voice shouted from down the hall. It sounded like a man, frantic and desperate. The urgency in his tone sent chills down my spine. Should we let him in? Would it be a trap? My instinct screamed at me to stay silent, but what if he was innocent? Without warning, the door shook again, and the girl's wide eyes met mine. We have to make a choice. Now. My heart raced. Then everything went dark. The lights above flickered out, plunging us into an oppressive darkness. Panic surged as I felt the girl grab my wrist harder, unpredictably tightening her grip. That's when I saw a faint glow near the window. Something was moving there, illuminated by an otherworldly light. What is that? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. But her eyes were locked on the door, fear radiating from her. We were running out of time, and the truth we needed rested somewhere between the shadows and that unsettling glow. The darkness felt thick, almost like a living thing, wrapping around us. The faint glow near the window pulsed slowly, casting eerie shapes on the walls. I squinted at it, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It flickered like a dying light, but it had an energy all its own. We can't stay here, the girl whispered, her voice shaking. I could barely make out her face, but I could feel her tension. My gut told me that whatever was out there, it was getting closer. A rattle at the door broke my focus. Let me in. The voice pleaded. It was still frantic, but it was no longer just noise. I could hear panic dripping from every word. It could be a trap. I hissed, glancing back at the glowing anomaly. I didn't know which was the bigger threat, the door or the light. Or it could be our only chance. She shot back. What if he knows how to escape? I ran my hand through my hair, frustration clawing at me. I didn't have enough information to make a good choice. What's the plan if we let him in? We can't just pop open the door and hope for the best. The plan is to survive. She snapped, her voice rising. The fighting spirit in her seemed to drown out the fear for a moment. We can't just sit here. The glow sparked brighter, and I felt its pull. Something about it was captivating, almost hypnotic. It drew me in, like a moth to a flame. What if we use that? To distract whoever is coming? The girl shook her head violently. That light, it could be dangerous. We don't know what it is. But I couldn't tear my eyes away. We might not have a choice, I said, the conviction in my voice surprising both of us. I needed to see what it was. Think about the other guests. If they knew something, maybe it's worth the risk. The rattling at the door intensified, but my focus was locked on the glow. I took a step toward the window. If I can just reach that light. Wait! She shouted, but it was too late. I moved toward the window, the glow pulsating with a subtle urgency. Each step filled me with equal parts dread and curiosity. Suddenly, the door gave a violent shove, and I heard the wood creaking under pressure. The girl backed away, eyes wide with fear. I could hear their voices more clearly now, low and conspiratorial. Almost through. Someone taunted from the other side. I glanced back at her, and the moment was charged with an unspoken agreement. Whatever was behind that door could very well end us. I reached for the window, feeling the cold glass under my fingertips. And that's when I saw it. The glow separated into multiple shapes, forming eerie figures in the darkness. They twisted, shrinking, expanding, closing in like they were sentient. What the hell? I breathed, backing away instinctively. The girl screamed just as the door splintered, a wooden shard breaking off and flying into the room. Just then, I realized whatever was coming for us had nothing to do with the man outside. And we weren't alone anymore. I sprang back, heart racing as the door broke open. I caught a glimpse of the outside world, chaos, shadows, and a multitude of figures sprinting toward us. Run! I shouted helplessly, adrenaline surging as I grabbed the girl's wrist and dashed to the window. Outside, the darkness felt alive, and the figures flickered just beyond the glass, poised to dart inside. The girl glanced back at the door, eyes wide with fear. "What do we do?" she cried. Panic tumbled through me. "We have to get out of here now." I turned to the window, already envisioning our escape route. "No. That's not safe," she yelped, trying to pull away, but I couldn't wait to argue. I pushed the window open, and a rush of cold air hit my face, mingled with the faint whispers of the spirits I had encountered. Their voices wrapped around me, pleading for release, a haunting symphony of lost souls. "Makes sense we'd end up here," I muttered, considering my options. I could hear the figures outside closing in, their whispers mingling with the echoes of the motel. "They want us in there," I shouted, urgency coating my voice. "We can't wait for them." In one fluid motion, I climbed through the window, pulling the girl with me. We tumbled into the night, landing with a gasp on the soft grass outside. We collected ourselves quickly, glancing back at the motel. It loomed over us, a dark tower of dread and despair. Suddenly, the girl froze. "Look!" she pointed. I turned to see shadowy forms spilling from the doorway, the figures darting with frantic energy, communicating in whispers and faint cries. They're coming for us," she whimpered, terror spreading across her face. With no other options, we raced toward the tree line bordering the motel, knowing we were riding the fine edge of escape. I could see the edge of the forest, the trees standing tall, waiting to swallow us whole. But it didn't end there. As we sprinted, the shadows shifted in our wake, almost as if the whispers were corralling us back, tending to a harvest they had marked as their own. "Don't look back," I shouted. I wasted a glance over my shoulder, catching sight of the shadows expanding, voices rising in a frenzied crescendo, screaming both in anger and desperation. "This isn't happening," I gasped, fear anchoring itself inside me. We reached the tree line, and I pushed hard, the branches scratching my arms, pulling me back like the motel's grasp had tried to do. The girl stumbled but quickly regained her footing. "This way," I yelled, veering left into the deeper woods. Darkness enveloped us as we fled, branches clawing at our clothes, but we pressed on, fueled by a primal need to escape whatever hunted us. Eventually, we broke through into a clearing where the moonlight illuminated our path, casting eerie shadows that danced around us. Panting, we collapsed against a tree. My breath caught in my throat as I realized we had escaped the motel, but at what cost? "What just happened?" I whispered, still feeling the weight of the whispers wrapping around me, lingering like a taunting echo. "I don't know," she breathed heavily, staring into the canopy above. "But we're not safe yet." Doubt washed over me. Had we really escaped? Or did the motel simply allow us a reprieve? The feeling of being watched slipped over my skin like a chill. What if they follow us? "They can't leave the motel, right?" she replied, but even she didn't sound convinced. I wasn't sure what was real anymore. The questions clawed at the edges of my mind. Was the motel a temporal prison? Were those shadows captured souls still tethered to a haunted past? A lingering silence grew around us, rupturing only with an occasional rustle of leaves and the distant whispers of the motel that seemed to stretch beyond reality. "I still don't understand," I finally spoke, my voice barely above a whisper. "What were they? Why did they need us?" As she opened her mouth to answer, a rustle broke through the trees. Shadows flickered at the periphery of our vision, drawing closer, feeding off our fear. With every creak and snap of a branch, my heart raced. "We have to go," I urged, pushing myself back to my feet. "Where?" she asked, stepping carefully back, her wide eyes reflecting both fear and determination. "Anywhere but here," I declared, grabbing her hand. I was filled with the desperate need to keep running. Whatever haunted that motel wasn't finished with us yet, and the truth remained obscured in the depths of darkness. As we sprinted deeper into the woods, a part of me wondered whether I had truly left Sunset Pines behind or if it had infused itself into my very essence, lingering beneath the surface. The shadows followed, twisting through my memories, leaving questions unanswered, and with every step, I could feel the weight of their whispers against my back, echoing my own dread. I wasn't sure whether I had escaped, but one thing was painfully clear: whatever reality I thought awaited me was just as dark as the one I had fled.